Welcome to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan, and today we have a very special guest with us, Vanessa Bennett. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for having me. So excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I have been following you forever, and this is one of those interviews where, yes, I'm excited for the audience. I'm also excited for me. I can't wait to just chat with you. And we have something really important to talk about. Your book is coming out. So I'm so excited to dive in and we'll get to all the things. First off, tell us a little bit about you
Mm,
and how you found yourself in the world of helping people. And then, specifically the work that you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
yeah. So I did not start off in this world. I lived in New York for many, many years. I was in corporate for over a decade. I was actually in advertising. And so I hit a point mid-20s where I was just unhappy, unfulfilled, wasn't quite sure why. Started my own therapy journey, started yoga, found meditation, really just started my whole spiritual journey at the same time. Um, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do something different. And by way of what I like to call the breadcrumbing, I took this training, I took that training, and kept kind of following the breadcrumbs. My therapist actually was the one that said, I think you should check out this school in California. I think you'd really, really love it. It was called Pacifica. And so I went out and I checked it out, and I knew immediately that I was kind of where I needed to be. I knew that I wanted to train and study in psychology, but I didn't want to do kind of the typical clinical route. And so, for those who don't know, Pacifica is a depth psychology school. And
Yeah.
so, depth psychology is the umbrella term for Jungian psychology, analytical psychology, and archetypal psychology. Right. So we really focus on the language of the unconscious, the language of the soul. It's called the psychology of the soul. It's much more kind of spiritually based. The unconscious speaks through image and metaphor and dream, and so we are really doing more soul to soul type work than we are doing clinical work. I mean, obviously, I'm trained to do clinical work, but it's not always where my heart lies, and so I fell in love with it. And so I ended a relationship at the time that was kind of, it was on its way out anyway, packed some suitcases, left everything behind, family, friends, moved to California, was in school, ended up leaving advertising. And I guess I was probably right at the end of my schooling, I actually met my now husband. And he had been in the world of therapy, especially online, for a long time before it was really kind of allowed or a thing. We're talking
Yes.
way pre-COVID, right?
Yes.
And I credit him a lot for giving me the I don't know, like the strength, or maybe like it was like stepping outside of what I thought was
The
allowed,
model. Yeah.
Yeah. And just really pushed me to like embrace myself and do what felt honest to me. And so I kind of took his lead, and I'm so glad that I did, right? Because now I get to talk to people like you, and I travel all over. We actually, in January of this year, we lost our house in the fires in California. And so me and my family decided to move to Costa Rica for a year and just kind of get our bearings. What are we going to do next? Are we going to rebuild? Are we not? So we're actually in Costa Rica right now. So if you hear a moped or a monkey in the background, I apologize. There's nothing I can do about that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And I know it's always hard to, make it a whole story in like a few minutes, but you did it so beautifully. So, so thank you for sharing. And yeah, I know, gosh, just seeing you go through that loss of your home and then this move to Costa Rica, I so appreciated just your vulnerability online. And, I think grief, right?
Mm.
It's like there's so much when you're
Hmm.
processing it and then being willing to share it in a vulnerable way, and I know it's helped so many people.
I hope
Um,
so. I hope so.
yeah,
It's the common denominator, right? It's grief is something we can all share in. So, no one's alone, no one's weird or messed up, we're
yeah,
all struggling. Grief looks different for everybody, but it's definitely something we've all experienced.
yeah, and I love what I love about this decision, and I'm curious if this is kind of where this came from, but instead of saying, "Oh, we have to decide what we're gonna do next," you're able to say, "Oh, let's take a pause. Let's
Yeah.
maybe do something we've always wanted to do. How can we take this horrible thing that has happened, but actually do the most kind thing to ourselves, which is not forcing us to make a decision right now and go somewhere new." That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's what we tried to do. We really wanted to be able to make our decision about our next step from a grounded place. And not everybody has that ability. I mean, so
Yes.
many people, especially on the East Side where I was in Altadena, are really struggling financially. And, and not that we aren't, I mean, wow,
Yeah.
the fires will
Yeah.
do that to you, but just to be able to say, let's take a beat, I think was so helpful for us. And I'm very aware that not everybody could do that. But, um, it felt right. It felt right to just take a breath.
And it's an example of the work that you talk about, of being
Mm,
able to slow down and pause and do things out of alignment. So I think that's so beautiful.
thank you. Trying trying to walk the walk, right?
Yes, yes. Um, so you have a book coming out,
I do. I do.
and I always want to hear kind of the story of
Mhm.
how it came to be. So tell us about the book. How did it come to be? What was it like writing it? Give us the whole rundown.
You know, I'll go way back to just say that I did not actually ever want to be a mother. I didn't want to have children. I didn't want to get married either, but uh, I I decided to become a mother. It was a conscious choice, and it kind of came to me, and I think my spirit aligned in a way that I was very. It was I was unexpecting it. I was not expecting it at all, but it definitely kind of became very clear that I wanted to do this with the partner that I'm with. And so when I became a mother, what I realized really quickly, first of all, I was peak COVID. I mean, we had our
Mhm.
daughter, and 2 weeks after we got home from the hospital, we went into lockdown. So
Mm,
peak COVID time, did not have a lot of support around me, right? It was just the three of us kind of holed up in our apartment for a while. And it became really clear quickly the systems that we live in and how they are set up specifically against us, against mothers, but against women, against people living, um, you know, living in fulfillment, living in alignment, having fulfilling relationships. And so I think having my daughter really lit a fire under my ass personally, relationally, because I had already been doing a lot of work around codependency recovery. It's kind of my jam. I'd already been leading a lot of codependency recovery groups during COVID, and I just started watching everything unfolding in my relationship after having my daughter. It was as if it ramped up. And I remember just thinking to myself, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am not letting these traits get carried down another generation. Like the buck stops here. And God bless my partner, because we've really turned our relationship upside down, and he was willing and he was ready as well. But it was really the catalyst for me to write this book. I started realizing, it's called the Motherhood Myth, and even though it's through the lens of motherhood, I wrote it into three sections. So the first section is motherhood, the second section is sex, and the third section is relationships. And so it's really talking about the myths, that these systems of dominance that we live within, right? So patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, colonialism, right? That it's like the air we breathe, how these systems of oppression essentially impact, affect, right, control the way in which we parent, the way in which we show up in our romantic relationships, and the way in which we show up in any and all of our relationships, right, including codependency. And
mhm.
so depth psychology is very much concerned with the collective. You can't separate the individual from the collective. And so making sense of how we got here from a collective perspective was just as important for me as then like dialing in and saying, okay, individually, what do we do about it? Right. And so I really tried to carry that theme throughout the entire book. We go macro and then we go micro. We go macro and then we go micro. Um, but I very recently, actually, I'll give a little like personal anecdote. Before we moved to Costa Rica, my partner and I had a pretty big blow up, which, look, a lot of stress, things were coming to a head. Our old tendencies were really kicking up, which they tend to do when we're stressed out, right? And we lose our tools. And
Mhm.
I actually looked at him and I said to him, I got real close and real quiet, and I went, "I'm gonna tell you something. I am 41 years old. I am not going back. My daughter will never see me self-abandon again." And I, like, walked away from the conversation with that kind of, like, period. And, I mean it. I mean it. And I think that statement was really, like, the statement that pushed me to write this book.
Oh, this is so beautiful, Vanessa. I am just really grateful for you and your work, and it's so true. All of the systems and the ways that we've been taught to self-abandon, particularly as women.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that you're taking this experience and that you're taking that firm stance on, okay, this will not be passed down to my kid, you know?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I feel a little emotional talking with you about this because I feel like I'm finding you at just the right time. I
Mm.
am entering marriage next
Mm.
month
Yep.
and then also intentionally planning to have kids.
Mhm.
Um, and I have to tell you this story real quick. I have a twin sister. She has 2 kids,
Okay.
ages 7 and 5, and I was watching them over the weekend, me by myself, these 2 kids, and I'm thinking, "This is gonna be fine, you know, it's fine." And it was for 3 days, only 3 days,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
And there was supposed my aunt was supposed to be available to help me out. Well, she ended up going out of town, she was not available, so it's just me. And I can't tell you the mental process that I went through in these 3 days of, "Oh my gosh, I just wanna go to the gym. Oh my gosh, like, I just wanna go to a cafe and read a book, and, oh, what about my work?" And all of these things that I do on a day-to-day basis that I take for granted right now. And I just felt like, "Oh, I have to just I have to be the mom," right?
Mhm.
And I experienced that abandonment over 3 days, and it made me miserable. It made me irritable. It made me communicate with people in ways that I don't normally communicate, and it was that total awareness of me of like, "Whoa, when I do step into motherhood, it cannot look like this."
Mm. Mm. Oh, yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being honest, right? Because I think this is another thing, and I talk about this in the book too, that nobody is honest with us about what motherhood's actually going to look like, you know? We hear the cute stories, and sure, we hear about, like, sleepless nights and all these things, but nobody talks about the absolute ego explosion, death of
Mhm.
identity that comes from entering into parenthood, you know, into motherhood. And it rocks your world in a way that I was completely unprepared for. Similar to you, right? I also think this is the thing too for our generation, maybe even more because we are waiting to have children. And so
Mhm.
maybe it's a little less shocking to the system when you have a kid at 20 because you're only 20 years into being formed. But when you wait until 30, 35, 40, right, you're that much more kind of established in who you are and what you like to do. And
Yes.
again, like your tools, the things you reach for comfort, all these things that suddenly are like, nope, those are gone. Right. And I felt like nobody told me that. I felt really almost betrayed in a way. And you know, I talk about how in the book, I actually talk about how there are so many cultures that still currently exist. This is not like times gone by that honor this transition and recognize that the women in the community come together, the family comes together. They support the woman's transition into motherhood, not just because they're supporting her with a baby, but they're actually supporting her spiritual healing, her emotional healing,
Mhm.
not just her physical healing. And they really honor and revere this moment, this crossing of this threshold into a new identity in a way that says, let me support you as you make this transition and integrate. Because if you don't, which we don't in this culture, you're going to struggle, and if you struggle, it will impact your children. It will impact your relationship with your children. There's research that actually shows that a traumatic experience of birth can have an impact on your ability to connect with your children for up to 9 years post birth.
Ugh.
So it really was shocking to me how we don't talk about this transition as being exactly what you're saying, which like you look around and you go, I don't want to do this. I actually don't like
Mhm.
this. This is bullshit, right? I mean, I say so frequently, and I've gotten slack for this. I love my child. I don't love parenting. There's two different things. And I don't love parenting because we're very, we're kind of left out. We're very like abandoned in the world of parenting. We don't have the community that we used to have, and we're doing our best, but it's by no means the way that our species was meant to raise children. You're not meant to raise children with one, maybe two people. It's not conducive to the survival of our species. And here we are. No wonder why we're overwhelmed, we're stressed out, we're not feeling fulfilled by it. It's not natural to our species.
Yeah, I think this is such an important conversation, and I'm curious for you. Obviously, your experience, I think, was even heightened due to it being COVID, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How did you cope? How did you get through this time of your life?
Mm. I think a little bit of it is just survival mode, right? Like, I think you go into survival mode. I think, I did have friends, a couple friends who were at least a few years ahead of me. So, my best girlfriend, Danae, she had a 2-year-old at the time when my daughter was born. And so we actually started our podcast during COVID as a way to be able to see each other frequently, right? Because we couldn't. And
Yes,
if I go back now and I listen to that first season, there's so much about the struggles around becoming a mother. And so in a way, I was able at least to process it with her and with some other friends of mine who were going through it. But, it took a toll on my relationship with my partner because you realize early on that there's just no way that they can understand truly what it means. They go through their own experience and their own transition for sure. I'm not minimizing that, but it's just different.
it's
And,
different.
I've actually, I talked about this in the book too, but I actually reached out to two clients of mine who I saw prior to becoming a mother, who were mothers. And after having my kiddo, I actually reached out to them and we caught up and I apologized for what I felt were some blind spots that there was just no way that I could see until I had gone through the experience myself. And, both of them were very kind and were like, oh no, it was amazing, blah, blah, blah. Our work together was so helpful. And I'm like, yeah, and I really recognize now that there was just no way that I could hold that for you because I just had no idea what it was like,
Mhm.
you know?
This is so important for people to think about, and my work is rooted a lot in attachment styles and understanding creating secure attachment with your partner.
Mm,
And I think what you're saying is so important in terms of understanding the impact of children on the secure attachment and on the relationship. What are some of the things that you've learned, I guess, that has helped you in
mm.
terms of your relationship? What are the things that help you stay close, that help you stay connected while becoming parents?
Ooh, we're about to go there. I'm going to go there with you. Here's why. Um, I had a lot of ideas about what healthy relationships looked like before having a child. A lot of those ideas were completely blown out of the water. And here's what I mean by that. I talk a lot about how I firmly believe we are a codependent society. It's the way in which we are taught that relationships should look and should feel, right? We self abandon in order to be chosen. We
Mhm.
prioritize everybody else at the expense of ourselves, right? We perform roles in order to stay chosen, right? In order
Mhm.
to kind of soothe our fear of abandonment that every one of us has, right? As a human animal. Um, and what happens when you bring a third constellation into your solar system is that, and I'm speaking heteronormatively here, but it does happen in same-sex couples as well. The primary caretaker, so let's just say it's the mother in this example, it wasn't mine, right? You become completely consumed with keeping this tiny being alive. And it's not, again, to minimize the help that the secondary parent is giving. But let's be real, you are their food, you are their sustenance, like the literal way to keep them alive, right? And so when you have established before this child comes into your sphere that we regulate each other, we are each other's secure base. What happens is it's very destabilizing for you when suddenly you're saying, no, 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 I actually cannot be that for you right now because I have to keep this being alive. So you're going to need to figure this shit out on your own because I'm only one person. I don't have time for myself at all because I'm consumed with keeping this being alive, let alone have time for you. right? So what I see happen so often during these early days of parenting is that there's almost like this energy competition that comes into play where the secondary parent starts to almost compete for your energy with this baby. And I've seen it happen time and time again with couples. And I saw it happen in my own dynamic. And it comes to a head. I mean, the first 2 years of having a child is a really critical time in relationships. Many relationships do not make it past the first 2 years, and I have come to realize that there are a few reasons why, and this is one of them. Um, in our society, we really do a disservice to men, right? We can all sit here and have this conversation that we know we all suffer under patriarchy, not just women, right?
Mhm.
And for a lot of men, what that suffering looks like is we teach them to essentially shove into the shadow their emotional selves, right? We teach them emotions are weak. We cut that ability off for them. They're not born that way. We train them to be that way, right? And what happens is they grow into adults, they partner with a woman. Again, we'll talk heteronormatively. And the woman in their life becomes their conduit to feel, their conduit to connect to themselves, their conduit to connect to something larger than themselves. And so I see happen often that the men in our society are not taught actually to self regulate, to go inward, to communicate their emotions in a healthy way, right? And many times they kind of reach out and look to the woman in their lives to help them do that, right? But what happens when that woman is now no longer available to do that? Because she's really busy and really tired and really overstimulated and really touched out, right? It creates a lot of strife in a relationship. And I watched how this played out in mine. And time again, I looked at my partner and I said, sorry, I'm sorry. I can't do this for you anymore. You're going to have to go out there and figure out how to self source, how to source this from within, because I can't do this for you anymore. But I also started realizing how I had been doing that and how much that played into sustaining codependent tendencies in my relationship. And so it was a wake up call, not only for me, but for him as well. And it was a real struggling point, and we're still working on it. But it's not just us, it's systemic. And that was one of the big ahas that I had through becoming a mother.
Oh, there's so much there. And if I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost as if you didn't realize the codependency traits that were there. Maybe you sort of knew them, but
Mhm.
then they became very clear to you once you had a child.
That's right. They're so pronounced. You can't get away from them because as a mother, like I'm too exhausted to care. One of those where it's like, I love
Yeah.
you. Sorry that you want to feel connected to me, but I actually don't have the capacity to care right now. I'm so exhausted and touched out that you're gonna have to figure out how to self-soothe because I can't actually do it for you.
Yes. And and I imagine, you're talking about the first 2 years. I imagine during that time for you, there was just so much of trying to figure out, well, what does it look like when I do have capacity, or
Mhm.
how do I connect with this person? Did you go through almost grief and fears of losing your connection to your partner?
I did, and I think that actually both of us in our own way had to do a lot of work around the grieving and the fear around that, right? Because I think on the other side of I'll even say the first 4.5 years, because I think she turned 5 in February, and there's been an interesting shift that happens around 5, which a couple of my parent friends have said, yeah, 5 is the day when they become a little bit more independent. They need you a little bit less, and so you start to take another breath, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed it in him and my relationship as well, but um, I think we both really realized that we had to be with ourselves through this experience.
Mm.
Self source, come back to, I've got me. I'll be okay. Even if this relationship were to change form, I'm not going to die. And so coming to that understanding over and over and over again, not in like a hyper individualistic way, but in a way that helped us to stop clinging and to stop putting expectations and things on the other person that actually were not their responsibility, which is so
Mhm.
often what we see happen in couples. They cannot be your everything. They should not be healing all of your internal wounding. They should not actually be your only primary source of, right, safety, security, attachment. Like we should we're social beings. We actually should have more than one attachment figure.
Yes.
And in this culture, that's not what we're taught, right? We're taught to do that with the one person. And so once that's not an option anymore, we have to sit with ourselves and we grieve that. We grieve the idea of what we thought the relationship would be, should be, could be. And I
Mm.
think that like inner safety that we come to, which says, I'm in this relationship because I want to be, not because I have to be or I'm terrified of what it will be without it. We both show up in such a more authentic and connected way because we're coming from that place now, you know?
That's so beautiful. And I think for people listening, it's important just the nuance of this of I think probably logically and in your brain, you had this belief of, oh, we're healthy, we're interdependent, we're not codependent, like we have ourselves, we have each other. Like you probably thought that very much, right?
Hmm.
I'm also saying from a vulnerable place. I think that's probably where I am with my partner
Hmm.
of like, yeah, we're interdependent. We're not codependent at all. But then it's different when you think about emotionally, right? And sort of
Yes.
what your nervous system
Yes.
feels to be true in your body.
That's
So
right.
so that thing that you said about, oh, I'm not going to die if this relationship was to change form. That's talking about emotional shift and
That's right.
nervous system change.
That's right. And here's what I will say, Morgan. I will say this. So often people will say, well, I'm not codependent. And I would actually say, yeah, you are. We all are. We all are to a certain extent. And let me tell you why. Because again, if our society is what teaches us this, right? Our
Yes.
society teaches us that first of all, many of us were not raised to be able to self soothe, to be able to say to ourselves, this is what we have to do for our children. Most of us didn't have parents that did this for us because of their own trauma, right? But to be able to sit with ourselves through big emotions and say, it's okay. I don't need to reach outside of myself to soothe myself. I've got this. I can ride this wave out.
Mhm.
It's hard, but I'm going to be okay on the other side of it. That's not an innate skill. We actually learn that skill because it's modeled to us by our parents. Most of our parents were not also able to model that for us, right? And so a lot of us are out here trying to do it on our own and trying to learn it as adults, which you can, just a
Yes.
little harder, right? And so the way that I talk about codependency is really this. I mean, it's an addiction, right? Like I say, one person's people pleasing is another person's Jack and Coke. Really just pick your poison. What do you reach for when you want to soothe the discomfort? When you want to release valve from the anxiety, from the something is not right and I don't know what to do about it, right? Because I don't have the kind of skills yet to sit in the discomfort and not fix it, not do something about it. Just allow it to be and allow it to pass. And so a lot of us do things like people please. We do things like smoothing things over. We do things like not speaking up and not creating conflict because we know where that'll go. We do things like, caretaking. We have these little ways of actually self-soothing anxiety, relational anxiety through the other person. If you're good, I'm
Mhm.
good,
Mhm.
right? But I can't be good unless you're good. So I'm going to focus externally and do what I got to do to make you good so I can be good. And even those of us who have done a shit ton of relational work, myself included, we still have our go tos.
And certain people that bring those things out more than others.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I always say, like, you're not just codependent in one relationship. It's like when I have like a 101 class I do, and I have a list of like, let's say 20 different symptoms, right? Or traits. And I always say, with my relationship with my partner, it might be like 2, 6, and 9. And my relationship with my mom, it's like 12 and 13. And my relationship with my kid,
Mhm.
it's like 14 and 12, right? Or whatever. They tend to show up differently in different relationships because different people activate, different responses at us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I'll just speak, I guess, from my own experience, but one of the things that I've found that helps me with codependence
Mm,
is that time apart. I don't know if that's something
totally.
that you talk about,
Yeah.
but it's especially I work from home, my partner works
Hmm.
from home. We are
Yeah.
in
Same.
the house together. We do this thing called solo Saturdays. We've
Love
done it
that.
like basically our entire relationship. But it's where I literally have to say to him, "Please go do something that makes you happy,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna do whatever the heck I wanna do. But I'm not even
I
gonna
love
tell
it.
you what I'm gonna do." It's a solo Saturday. Like,
I love that.
yeah. So I don't know, what are some of the things that you have done that has helped you get back to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I love the solo Saturdays. It actually reminds me of something that Danae has frequently told couples that have children, where she'll actually say, because again, once you have a kid, forget solo Saturdays. They don't exist
I
anymore.
know.
Right?
Right.
And so if you're somebody, by the way, if you're an introvert and you haven't had children yet, ooh, buckle up because there is no downtime. Okay. Just prepare yourself. But what I love that Danae tells her kind of couples that have children is she literally says, act like you're divorced.
Mhm.
And she's like, "What do I mean by that? I mean, when you're divorced, one person takes the kids for one weekend, the other person probably takes them the other weekend, and the other person has downtime. They get to be alone. It doesn't have to be that the family is together all of the time, doing everything together all of the time. It
Mhm.
actually should be like, I want to give you this time alone. I'm going to take the kids for Saturday. You take the kids for Sunday. Right. And so we get to have our solo Saturday or a solo Sunday, but we've got to be a little bit more strategic about it once kids come into play. Because you're right. It is really important that we get to be a self, a capital S self with no other role, right? No parenthood role, no partnership role. Like you said earlier, you get to go read a book in a cafe if that's what you want to do with zero guilt, no timeline
Yeah.
associated with it, right? Because it's really important for our psyches to be an individual, you know? So I love that. I think, I don't think we've done a good job since we've moved here. I think actually, the trauma that has been this year since the fires has really, which I actually would say is similar to the trauma of having a child. The initial kind of blow up of having a child. There's not a lot of alone time because you almost like need each other so much for survival that you
Yeah.
just kinda say, "You know what? The romantic side of this relationship is gonna have to be put over here for a bit, because 'cause
Yeah.
we've gotta figure out how to survive, first and foremost." And I feel like that's been the first part of this year for us again, like, we kinda had to say, "Survival first." And now that we've landed and we're kinda getting our bearings, we're trying to do that again. So, how do I give him a couple hours during the day on a Saturday, and he does the same for me on a Sunday or whatever that looks like? But I guess I give that to say, don't beat yourself up if you're listening and you're like, "How can I do that? I have a baby," and yes, I get that. Or, "How can I do that? We're in this huge transition in our lives." I get that. It will come. Get your feet underneath you again, and then try to establish those solo moments.
Yeah, and it's almost like the awareness of it of, oh, it's, the codependence is here and it's survival and
It's
it's okay.
survival. And let's just name it, right? Let's not either person pretend that it's not what it is. I think saying it out loud is one of the most important things we can do.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this way and I just need to share it with you because I don't want it to be something that I'm carrying alone, right? So powerful and so important because I guarantee the other person's feeling some sort of way too, right? So let's
Yes.
just call it.
Yes. And I'm curious, you have done a good job of talking about that this is happening in a system, in a society, in a culture where it's true. We kind of put your significant other on a pedestal and it's this idea of you have to find the one and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
your therapist, your best friend, the person you're going to cook every single meal with. And I mean, we have sort of romanticized this idea of codependency and what it's
Yep.
supposed to look like.
That's right.
And then what do you do in a culture where if your relationship doesn't look like that, we have people that are like, "Oh, what's wrong with your relationship?" Or there's judgment around not having that codependent type of relationship.
All the time, all the time. So we have to be honest, right? Honesty is the only way to break the stigma. So often I'll jokingly say that right before our house burned down, we had a 3 bedroom, small, modest California style 3 bedroom. And my daughter had finally, well, she was coming into our bed, right? All the time. Cause once they get out of their crib, forget it. You never sleep in your bed alone. And I'm a really light sleeper and I don't sleep well with other people. And so we finally got that third was just an office. We set it up as a bedroom. And we had transitioned everything of John's into that bedroom. And so we were all sleeping in our own rooms. And so that way, when she came in at night, if we were in a king, it wasn't the three of us. I could actually sleep because I had space. And people would be like, "Oh, you guys sleep in separate bedrooms?" And I'm like, yes, it's amazing. It's the
Yeah.
best thing that we have ever done for our relationship because I would wake up in the morning
Yeah.
overstimulated and miserable. Like my eyes would open and I was already pissed off and like, everybody leave me alone because I
Yeah.
was being touched all night. I wasn't getting good sleep, right? And so this was giving us the opportunity for me to wake up refreshed and, hey, I kind of missed you over there, right? And so I give that one silly example to say, it doesn't matter. Do what works for you.
Yeah.
Do what works for your relationship, for your family. There's no rules. They're arbitrary. They're all made up anyway, right? Even the
Mhm.
nuclear family is made up. It was a social construct to actually separate us and get us to be a little bit more controlled and controllable. So make it up, guys. All the rules are made up anyway. It doesn't matter.
I have an example of this, Vanessa. I'm about to get married next month. And I wanted to do something before I got married that was for me. So
Mm,
I found this concept of the solo moon.
love it. Oh, yes. I've
And
heard about this. Amazing.
right? And
Yep.
I went to Spain and I didn't just go for like a week. I went for 3 weeks
Oh,
with
girl.
friends.
So jealous. Sounds
Well,
amazing.
but I did feel internally, I was like, "Oh, what are people gonna think about this? I'm
Yes.
going to
Oh,
Europe without my partner, like, are people gonna think something's wrong? Are people gonna think, 'Oh, she must not wanna get married?'" But the reality is it's something I wanted to do for me. I'm keeping
mhm.
promises I made to myself. It's been on my vision board. This is what my heart wanted, and I wanted to do it with my friends, not with
That's
my
right.
partner.
But that's going against what we were just saying, which is like your partner should be your everything. No, they shouldn't. My mom and I mean, this year we had to take off because of all the circumstances that we're dealing with. But my mom and I do a Europe trip as well for the last couple of years. And the very first year we were planning it, John was like upset that we were planning this trip to Paris and this and that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. You can plan a trip whenever you want with whoever you
Yes,
want. I am not stopping you, but I will not feel guilty for wanting to do this trip with my mom, right? And we went, we had an amazing time and he had to work through it and he did. He
yes,
worked through his jealousy, he worked through feeling left out. It's like I love you, I hear you, take it to your therapist.
yes. Yes. And it's that whole thing of, hey, I want to be an incredible partner to you. And the way that I'm an incredible partner to you is if I show up for me.
If I am self-resourced.
Yes.
That's right. And we can't
Yes.
self-resource when we feel like it's coming from a place of being needed to do something, right? The expectations of doing it. That's not the same as wanting to do it from a place of being self-resourced, which is what comes when we give ourselves that time
Mhm.
to do our thing and to take care of ourselves and to nourish ourselves, right? They're very different places. We all know that feeling of like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
doing this because I have to, which is very different than I'm doing this because I want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm thinking about, and I'm sure this is likely in your book, but how do we work on creating more community around parenthood and trying to shift into this is not just the solo
Mm.
experience, but having it be a more community experience.
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and it is something when I was writing about this that I grappled with because first of all, we have to call out that there are real socioeconomic hindrances to creating community, right? I saw something recently. Trevor Noah was talking about in his podcast where he said it's so fascinating to me how the more developed a country becomes, the less community they have. And then what happens is capitalism packages community and sells it back to us. So we have to buy somebody to help take care of our children. We have to buy somebody to help us upkeep our home and help us cook and maybe help us clean. We have to buy our community back essentially, which isn't that just the most quintessential capitalistic idea that you've ever heard, right? Let me take something that is innate to you and then package it up and resell it back to you. And so that just, God, when I heard that, it like really punched me in the gut. But
Mhm.
I say the socioeconomic piece of it because not everybody does have the capacity in a capitalist society to have help with their children, right? Or to have help running and managing a home. And
Yes.
that is a very real problem, right? But that aside, what I realized, and it's hard because in our hyper individualistic society, we are taught that asking for help is shameworthy, right? We are taught, especially as women, that we should do it all and we can have it all and we should be superwoman. I always say superwoman is like such an insult. It's not the like compliment that we think it is, right? Um,
Yeah.
we have to get better at actually saying to our friends and our loved ones, I need help. I need support. I actually cannot do this all alone, right? And before the fires, I had a pretty solid group of women who had kids of all different ages that were close, and we would do those things where, shit, I have a meeting during this time on this Saturday or this podcast, and I can't. And my friends would say, send her across the street. I got it. And then it was just unspoken the next weekend, or she had something, oh my God, give me the kids. I got them. No problem. No questions asked. No shame. Right. And so we all started stretching that muscle of asking for help. And the more we stretched that muscle and it was just a give and receive, the easier it became. And the more joy we actually had when we were able to be with our kids. Because again, going back to what we were saying about your partner, you're coming from a place of self resourcing. You're not trying to do it
Mhm.
all. You're not meant to. And we all need to really question this idea that we have that asking for help somehow makes us weak or that it makes us a failure. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And that belief does keep us controlled. It keeps us overwhelmed. It keeps us overworked. And the more overwhelmed and the more overworked we are, the easier it is to
Yeah.
keep these systems of oppression propped up.
Oh, yeah. And I think, gosh, it's finding those like-minded people who
Hmm.
they want it to be reciprocal. They want to show up for you as well. Um,
That's right.
I think some of us have been wounded by feeling like we give to people that then don't want to show up for us.
That's right.
So I think just that importance of people that see the value in community, see the value in, hey, you're going to show up for me, I'm going to show up for you. Let's create this type of network.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm so sorry that that was one of the things that you lost in losing your community.
Yeah. That's actually probably been the hardest component to it. Of course, the house and the memories and the things in it, but we had that magical street that was the dead end and the doors were open and the kids were running back and forth and there was no worry because if you couldn't see them, you knew they were across the street, and we felt like we were really creating something that a lot of us had in the 80s, right? In the 90s,
Yes.
that has gone away, especially in cities. And so it was really heartbreaking to lose that. And I think all of us are really hoping that we'll find that or be able to create that again.
Yes, I hope that for you.
Mm,
Absolutely.
thank you.
I want to come back to your book for a bit before we wrap up and just ask you, who is this book for?
Mm. When you say that, I actually haven't been asked that question before, but when you say that, the first thing that came up was me. And I say that because a friend of mine who's also an author in this field, when I first started writing this book, I was so torn. I had so many angles and things I wanted to say. And she said to me, write the book that you wish you had when you were in the midst of all of it. And that has always stuck with me. And so I know now through experience that if I write that book that I wish I had had, that I know that it's going to translate and I know that people are going to find it helpful. And so, it is through the lens of motherhood. Obviously, it's called the Motherhood Myth. But I do think that this is a helpful book for anyone who wants to understand how we got here, right? How did we get to this place where we have these myths that motherhood, partnership, relationships should be inherently easy. And if they're not, there's something wrong with us. And for anybody who wants to like challenge that and kind of buck the system a bit, I think this is the book for you. It is written obviously with resources as well, like tools and exercises and things to do that inner excavatory work. So I don't think it's just for moms, even though of course moms will find it, I hope, really helpful and give them a voice.
So wonderful. Well, I know I am very excited to read it, and I think my fiancé should read it. I think men would
I
benefit
agree.
from this.
I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree. I actually think my partner's been saying that as well. He's like, "I think this book is just important for men to read, so that they can truly understand." Because, I'm sure you say this thing too. It's like, it's all about personal responsibility. We've got to be able to look at ourselves and how we show up in our dynamics if we hope to change those dynamics. It's not about pointing the finger at the other
Mhm.
person, right? And I think this book, in a lot of ways, for both sides, hopefully allows us that opportunity to say, "Oof, this is uncomfortable to hear, but it's important that I look in this mirror."
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so excited for this to come out. Obviously, it's coming out August 19th. What
It
is the
is.
best way for people to grab their coffee?
Well, right now, if you get it pre-order through my website, you'll get access to the free book club that we're doing starting in September when everybody's got their copies or their audio. And you also get a companion guide that I created to go along with it. So I would say right now it's through my website, and I'll through the website I'll kind of push you out to a couple of the main retailers, right? So whether that's Bookshop or Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So vanessabennett.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. I will have that link in the show notes, so I highly recommend everyone go grab the book. I know I will be reading it. I am just very grateful to have had this conversation with you. Thank you for sharing everything.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morgan. It was a pleasure. So glad we finally got to get on together.
I know, finally. Um, I wanna ask you, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, so I'm very
Same.
aware, I'm like, "Okay." But I do have one more question. For that person who let's say they are a mother right now, and they're really struggling, and they feel really stuck, and maybe they're, even experiencing depression or a really low energy, and they're in that survival mode.
Yep.
What is the first thing that you would want them to consider when they wanna change and heal?
Ugh. I feel this question in my body. Like I felt like I have a somatic response to this question because this is something I get asked a lot, and it's something I grappled with. First and foremost, we've got to give ourselves grace. Going back to what I was saying about, like, if this is the season that you're in, just acknowledge that it's the season that you're in. You're not broken. There's something wrong with you. The systems are working against us. Okay. And so often, depression, anxiety, whether we're talking about postpartum or we're not, it is your system's way of responding to a messed up external social system, right? Your internal system is saying something is wrong with the way that
Mhm.
we are living. It is not a measure of your brokenness. It is a measure of the external system's brokenness. And so I want especially mothers to hear me when I say that. You're not doing anything wrong. The system has failed you and it continues to fail you. Okay. So this is the season you're in. Give yourself grace. It is about survival in those very early moments. All right. Once you come out of the haze of survival, which you will, we all do, and you blink your eyes and you look around and you go, holy shit, it's been 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever that moment is for you. People are going to roll their eyes at me. They're going to scoff. And I remember being this person. You've got to remember that you are a self too. You are a self too. And you've got to remember that if you want to raise your children to have a solid sense of self and they themselves have fulfilling relationships and a fulfilling life and relationship with themselves, right? And be fulfilled, you have to model that for them. Children do not learn by what they hear, they learn by what they see. They are always watching. And if what they are seeing is you giving to everyone and everything except for yourself, they're going to learn that that's what they need to be as to be an adult in this world. And so it is not selfish to do something like we talked about earlier and have a solo Saturday and say, I'm going to go for a couple hours and get my nails done. I'm going to go for a couple hours and have coffee with friends, right? It's not selfish. It's actually the best kind of parenting that you can do because that's what you're teaching your children, that they get to prioritize themselves sometimes, right? And they don't need to be a martyr to be loved. But they get to be a self and be loved at the same time. And so I set that long-winded answer up with the grace first because I think if we're in the haze of survival, we can't see that. And it feels so unrealistic. And trust me, I understand that. it will feel more realistic when you get to the other side of that phase that you're in.
Ah, such a beautiful answer, and I think this gives people hope, right?
I
If you're
hope.
in it, if you're in that place where you're in survival, that idea that, "You know what? One day I could rebuild. What one day I could change this dynamic." I
Mm.
think that's gonna really give people hope.
Yeah, it
And
will,
yeah,
and you have to fight for it. Here's the thing. You've gotta make a commitment to yourself, and you have to say, this is important. I am a priority." And you've gotta prioritize yourself. Dig your claws in, like, yank it back because there's always gonna be something else to do. There's always gonna be dishes to
yeah,
do. There's always gonna be laundry to do, right? It will be there when you get home from that coffee with your friends, and you're no less of a parent or a mother by leaving that laundry there and going and taking care of yourself.
I love it. I love it so much. I think just this awareness of it doesn't have to look like it's looked for your parents, for maybe all the parents in your friend group.
No,
You can decide to do it differently. You can decide
that's
to do
right.
it differently. And I think you and I would both say this, please don't try to do it alone, whether it's, go get a therapist, get a coach, get support.
Yes.
Get support. Don't try to navigate it alone.
You're not meant to, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
don't do it.
Exactly, Vanessa. Oh, this is so powerful. I feel like, the universe has connected us right at the time that
Good
I needed
timing.
to hear this message. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I will make sure my fiancé listens to this episode, that we read your book together. This is gonna be so good. And everyone, I know Vanessa and I would love to hear from you as well. If people wanna say thank you for this episode, what would be the best way to connect with you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram, Vanessa S. Bennett, and then, Substack, TikTok, all the things. It's usually, it's Vanessa
Perfect.
Bennett. So hit me up on any of the socials. I'm there and I'm always listening. And if you've got questions you want me to answer, et cetera, happy to do that.
I love it. So we'll put all that in the show notes as well. And Vanessa, this is my final question for you. I ask all of my guests, if you're walking down the street and someone approaches you and they're asking you for your best life advice of the moment, right? So this happens today. What would you say to that person?
So my best life. I get to make mistakes. I get to turn around and try over and over and over and over again. And it doesn't diminish my worth as a human in any way.
So powerful. So powerful. I think we all have this perfectionistic standard, especially I think with social media, and we see
Hmm.
people that we think have these perfect lives, and we're all very afraid to make mistakes. So I think that's powerful advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. It makes you human when you make mistakes.
We're all human. Let's stop
Yeah.
pretending we're not.
Yes, we're all human. Exactly. Well, I think that's a beautiful place for us to wrap up. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And I am so, so excited about your book.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. I appreciate you.
All right. And everyone, go check the links in the show notes. Everything you need is there. And of course, from both Vanessa and I, we're wishing you high self worth and great relationships. I'll talk to you soon.